one point during this half-an-hour conversation, Ames took out a piece of notepaper and wrote down a list of many of the American assets in the USSR. This was, at the very least, one of the most stunning intelligence coups in KGB history.
Is the Cold War really over? What happened between Russia and America? All the espionage that was going on between our two countries. It's all featured in the new Smithsonian series, Spy Wars. And joining me right now is former CIA and intelligence officer, John Sipher. Good morning, John.
Hi, Jeff. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Let me ask you about Spy Wars. Has the spy game evolved much over the past few decades?
Well, in some ways, it hasn't. So the U.S. government has a large national security apparatus, and the intelligence community is part of that. So there are a variety of collectors overseas, everything from our diplomats to overhead satellite systems and other things. The clandestine service is the espionage arm, the people who deal with the human factor of collecting information overseas. And in some ways, that hasn't changed. We can collect information around the world, but unless we understand the intent of other governments and other actors that present a threat to us, then we haven't really done our job. And so oftentimes that is finding key people in key places, developing relationships of trust with them, and having them share that information with the United States, often at great risk to themselves. And so what Spy Wars with Damian Lewis on the Smithsonian Channel does is it provides a variety of those stories to give the viewer a sense of the kind of work that their national security professionals are still involved with today.
Now, we all hear about agents who flip or become double agents. Does that really exist?
That is the whole game of the kind of work I did 30 years overseas. And so, like I said, it's one piece of a much larger puzzle. But there are people for a variety of reasons. Either they work in countries that are repressive, they believe in the United States and what the United States stands for around the world, or they have their own issues and problems and a resentment or a revenge against people they work for, or need for their children to come to the United States. Whatever it is, we're looking at people who have access to information that the U.S. government needs and can't get any other way. And if we can get people to cooperate with us and spy for us, if you will, we will do so. But it's not an efficient business. Most people aren't in that kind of position and don't want to spy. But when we get the right person, it can be incredibly important for our security.
Now, John, being a career man at the CIA, do you know secrets that are just eating you up inside that you've kept for many, many years and you're just dying to tell?
Yes. When we leave, we make it very clear that, what's classified and what isn't. When I left, I was undercover while I was in the CIA, but when I left, I was allowed to say that I worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. But it's very clear to me, what are the things that need to be protected and what don't. I think the American people need to understand what their intelligence agencies do on their behalf, but they don't need to know specific, cases and stories and agents who I could be putting in harm's way if I was to give that information up. So it's a pretty clear line about what needs to be protected and what doesn't.
One of the most popular series in recent times is on the FX network, The Americans, about a family that are sleeper agents for the Soviet Union. Does that really exist? Are there sleeper agents here in America?
Well, you'll see from the series, the Spy Wars series, there's a story about there are 10 Russian illegals who were arrested in 2010. And that was the impetus for the show, The Americans. And so the Russian and Soviet espionage agencies before them, they would have people like I was working overseas in embassies collecting intelligence, but they also had these people deep, deep undercover who were not even Russians. They were pretending to be Americans, Canadians, and others living within our midst collecting intelligence. And this is a huge challenge for the FBI, whose job is to protect against foreign intelligence in the United States, to determine who these people are, because they never go to the Russian embassy. They don't talk to other Russians. They're living in our neighborhoods. Their children don't even know that their parents are Russian. And so there's an episode in Spy Wars about that, very important and interesting case. And that was the impetus for the show, The Americans. And yes, it does continue to this day.
Well, John, thank you so much for speaking to me today. Thank you for your service, and please stay safe.
My pleasure. You as well.
If they really want to torture you, they're going to do it, and you can't stop it.
Anyone
wants a really good spy story, this is better than any fiction.
You can catch Spy Wars on the Smithsonian Channel, and for more reviews and interviews, just surf on over to my website at vegasfilmcritic.com. I'm Jeffrey Howard in Las Vegas. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.